Good evening. I am Joseph Holbrook, your professor for LAS4294, Contemporary Latin America and the Caribbean. This is the capstone course for your bachelor's major in Latin American and Caribbean studies. It's supposedly supposed to be the last course you take. However, I know some of you still have a few more courses to finish here to graduate. I'm looking forward to this course with you. I designed the course. I have been working on it since last summer, so I'm super excited to be able to go through this series of readings with you. This course is a little more difficult, perhaps, than LAS 3002 that you took before. It is set up like a graduate level master's course, but with a reduced reading load. Hopefully it'll be manageable. I am available. You can contact my office, 305-348-7283. Call me or email me if you are having any difficulties, and I'll be more than happy to meet with you and assist you in whatever way I can. Scrolling down, let's take a look at the assignments. There are no quizzes, no exams. This will be this course is entirely reading, thinking, discussing, and writing. 20% will come from the reading reviews. You'll be writing a 500-word review of the readings for each week and posting them by Friday night at midnight, and then reading and replying to 3 of your colleagues' reviews. That'll be 20% of the grade. 10% will be the selection of a topic by January 31st. The end result of this course is going to be a 12-page research paper. And the first step in a long journey, as a Chinese proverb says, is a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And so to write a 12-page research paper, the first step is to choose a topic. So you will need to start thinking about topics that interest you. What country, what part of Latin America, what theme, what topic, what issue, what demographic group. Indigenous, Afro-Latinos, European Latinos, women. You will need to give that some thought. And so the third assignment will be a research proposal in which you describe your proposed research, why it's important, what it is, where it is, when it is, and why you think it's important, with an initial bibliography. I'll give more detail on these down below. Then the last 3 assignments will be stages in the development of your paper. The first one will be worth 15%, and that will be to submit an introductory paragraph with an outline and a bibliography and a thesis statement. The second part will be to finish an initial first draft of at least 8 pages and turn that in for me to look at. And then finally, at the end of the semester, will be the 12-page paper by, I should have changed that. I'll change that. It says April 18th, but it's supposed to be April 25th. Virtual class participation. Every week on Tuesday at 4 p.m., I'll be holding an Adobe Connect online session to answer your questions and to interact with you and to explain a little bit about the week's readings. I will provide some instructions on how to use Adobe Connect if you've never used it before, and that'll be Tuesdays at 4 p.m. It's not graded. A lot of times there can be technical difficulties, so it's not fair, in my opinion, to give a grade for that. But it's available as a resource if you need it. So down under the weekly assignments, there'll be readings will be 40 to 60 pages each week of reading. Don't panic. If you're in grad school, it's at least 100 pages a week. Actually, more than that. It's more like 100 pages a day in some programs. Each week you'll be responsible for submitting a response paper on Blackboard by Friday. The minimum is 500 words, and it should be posted in a forum discussion format. Each student will also read 3 other reviews and give a reply. That'll be 20% of the grade. By January 31st, I'm going back over these, I've already mentioned them, but you'll be selecting a topic and a tentative thesis statement and uploading that. There's also going to be a library training session on February 6th. The research proposal is 20% of your grade. It'll be due on February 14th. I have posted an example of a research proposal provided by the University Graduate School, and I will talk to you about what a good research proposal consists of. I don't know how many of you are thinking about going to graduate school. I have a feeling several of you are, but these are things you'll need to do in graduate school. So consider this a little bit of advanced preparation. Then on March 7th, you'll be turning in your first paragraph and your outline and thesis statement. And I'll talk more about that as we go along in the semester. Your first draft of 8 pages will be due on April 4th. The final draft of the research paper will be 12 pages, 12 to 15 pages, will be due on April 25th. So here is a graphic about the grading criteria and the FIU grading scale. Okay, these top 4 books are basically textbooks. You don't have to buy them. You can find them in the library. I have some of them in my office. Also, I've scanned some of the readings in so that if you can't find a copy in the library or someone else has borrowed my book in the office, I can send you or provide you with the PDF reading. So don't go out and buy them unless you're wanting to build up your own library. Mark Burkholder, John Chastain, Thomas Skidmore, and Peter Wynn. These are 4 textbooks that we'll look at and compare them and see the different kinds of needs that they serve, what their strengths and weaknesses are. We'll be covering those in the first 3 weeks of the readings. Not the entire book, a couple selected chapters from the books. Then I have a bibliography. And again, you're not going to be reading all of these, but these include all the readings from our course. And if it's a book, you're probably only required to read 1 or 2 chapters. And I have most of those scanned into PDFs. But as you'll discover, if you go on into graduate school, into a master's or PhD program, a bibliography is a very precious thing. When you find bibliographies in areas that interest you, you will want to keep them and use them. You know when you become a history nerd when you spend more time in the bibliographies than in the actual book. Okay, are we doing good so far? I'm going to post this online so you can go back and review it. And then, of course, if you have questions, you can contact me. So week 1, and I will be posting another video going into more detail about week 1, but we're going to talk about what are area studies. And I have several articles for you to read in 1 chapter from Burkhold's Colonial Latin America. That's going to be basically dealing with what are area studies. Basically, what is Latin America? Is Jamaica part of Latin America? Is Haiti part of Latin America? What about Brazil? So we'll be talking about that this week. Week 2, we'll be going over the John Chastain book, Born in Blood and Fire. I'm using this book this semester in my History of Latin America course. It's really good reading. It has some weaknesses, but the strength is that it's a very interesting read, and it captivates your attention. Born in Blood and Fire by John Chastain. You'll be required to read chapters 3 and 4. Week 3 will be Peter Wynn, Americas, which focuses more on contemporary Latin America. And again, only 2 chapters, Making Revolution and just part of the North of the Border chapter. And then week 4, you'll be reading, if you didn't get Burkholder read the first week, you'll have another chance to read that chapter in week 4. But the main reading will be Thomas Skidmore and Peter Smith, Modern Latin America, the Chapter 5 on Brazil. Then in week 5, we go to a classic of history by C.L.R. James. The book is called The Black Jacobins, and it's about the history of the Haitian Revolution. Excellent book. And you'll be reading chapters 1 through 3. Then on February 6th, we'll have a library training session. Week 6, we'll be looking at Latin America through the lens of political science and reading a chapter from an edited book by David Collier about authoritarianism in Latin America, with a selection of reading from Max Weber on patrimonialism. And that week, you'll need to submit your initial bibliography and proposal for your research project. Week 7, we'll be reading through the lens of international relations. One of my favorite books, Peter H. Smith. The book is called The Talons of the Eagle, Latin America, the United States, and the World. And you'll be reading chapters 1 and 2, called The Gospel of Democracy. It's about 60-some pages of reading. And if you have time, I shouldn't say that like that, should I? But if you have time after you've read the chapters in Peter Smith, Leslie Bethel has a chapter on Brazil and Latin America that deals with the issue is Brazil part of Latin America? And it's worth reading. Then we go into economics and development. Fernando Enrique Cardozo and Enzo Faleto. This is a classic of Latin American economics, dependency, and development in Latin America. And we'll be talking about the theory of dependency, or dependency theory. And Luis Perez Jr., who's a famous writer on Cuba, wrote an article in 1990 on dependency. You can read as a supplement to that. Week 9, we move on to sociology and anthropology, and in this class we'll be reading Fernando Ortiz, a famous Cuban sociologist. His book is called Cuban Counterpoint. It's kind of a classic of Cuban sociological literature. And that week I will be looking for your first paragraph, outline, and thesis statement. Then you have spring break, and I have not assigned anything to you over spring break. You can thank me later. Week 11, we'll talk about education and pedagogy, and we'll be reading a chapter and introduction from Paulo Freire, a Brazilian educator, and his book is called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Then we move on to religion with Gustavo Gutierrez, a theology of liberation, a Peruvian priest. And then literature, we'll be reading a story by Machado de Assis, one of the most famous Brazilian authors, and another short story by Jorge Luis Borges, an Argentine writer. And then you'll be reading an article about the literature and history in contemporary Latin America by Walter, 1987. Week 14, we'll get into dance and music. Chastain wrote National Rhythms, African Roots, about the role of samba, salsa, and tango in helping countries integrate their populations and develop a sense of nationality and national identity. And we'll be reading a introduction and chapter about Arsenio Rodriguez, who is widely considered to be the father of salsa, Cuban salsa. And the last week then will be cultural studies. Again, one of my favorite books, Walter Mignolo, The Idea of Latin America. And you'll be reading 2 chapters from that. And then the final week, you'll be turning in your final research paper. Okay? So, that's our syllabus. And I'm looking forward to teaching you this semester. I hope that I'll be able to have a personal consultation with each of you during the course of the semester. I'll be reaching out to you for that. Again, it's not graded, but I think it will help if I can meet with you, make sure you're doing well, and I wish you the best. So please stay tuned for more. Talk to you soon.